Hi, and welcome back to U.S. History with me, Mr. Snyder, and today we are going to be finishing up our studies of U.S. history with our discussion of the Barack Obama presidency. So to start off, 2008 presidential election is a huge one because for the first time in a long time, there is no candidate connected with the previous administration who is running. John McCain becomes the Republican nominee. He was a Vietnam prisoner of war, and he's been a senator from Arizona since 1986. And newcomer Barack Obama was a senator from Illinois, son of a white woman from Kansas and a black man from Kenya. He graduates from Harvard Law School. The Republicans under Bush have not been faring very well, and he has very low approval ratings, which means that the Democrats are almost assured of victory in November. And they also expand their majority in Congress. So some of Obama's domestic policies in his first term are the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. He enters office at the beginning of a recession, so he does give billions of dollars in tax cuts, aid to local and state government, and the Democrats' way, the Keynesian model of getting out of a recession, would be to stimulate the economy. That was the key word of 2009, 2010, was giving funds for infrastructure projects, kind of like they did in the New Deal. He sought to add diversity to his government to reflect the diversity of America, so his one-time political opponent, Hillary Clinton, serves as the Secretary of State for Obama's first term, and he also nominates two women to the Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, who becomes the first Hispanic justice, and Elena Kagan, both women who are now on the Supreme Court. Another major domestic policy for Obama is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. It's the same thing. It was signed into law in 2010. It basically extends affordable health care coverage to those who are uninsured, and it requires that people have health insurance or they have to pay a penalty. It prevents insurance companies and puts a lot of restrictions on them. For one, they cannot deny insurance to those with pre-existing conditions like they could before. And it provides subsidies for low-income earners, meaning they're going to help people below the poverty line get affordable health care coverage. Critics argue it would be a burden on small businesses because if they have more than a certain number of employees, they have to provide health insurance for their full-time workers. It costs too much, and it gives the federal government way too much power, according to critics. His foreign policies in Iraq, he formally ends operations in Iraq and pulls most of the troops out before 2011. We still have troops there today in supporting roles. In Afghanistan, he increased American involvement in Afghanistan after he won the Nobel Peace Prize, which was kind of ironic to me, but he increased American involvement in Afghanistan, eliminating the Taliban forces there. And finally, in May 2011, he gave the go-ahead for the raid of the Pakistani compound where Osama bin Laden was kept, and they killed Osama bin Laden. And in Libya, I know we talked about Libya in Topic 12 a little bit, but in 2011, we aid rebels in a sort of civil war there to overthrow Muammar al-Gaddafi, who supported terrorist groups. We have bombed him before. He is overthrown and executed in the country of Libya. In the 2012 election, a big influence was the Tea Party movement, because these local groups thought that our national debt was getting out of hand, and they're united by a common desire to reduce the size and amount of spending by the federal government. So this is a conservative movement happening within the Republican Party, and in the 2010 midterm elections, over 40 Tea Party candidates are elected to the House and Senate. In the 2012 election, Mitt Romney becomes the Republican nominee. He is older and wealthy, and Democrats paint him as out of touch with the majority of America. He also makes a comment that 47% of Americans pay taxes or do not pay taxes, and somebody released a video of that, and he got into a little bit of hot water with how he was talking about Americans in that speech as well. In Obama's second term, this is kind of where the book ends and where our curriculum ends. Unemployment, while Obama did lower it in his first term, it remains higher than average at 8%. Job growth is lagging. The government does shut down at one point because Democrats and Republicans cannot agree to raise the debt ceiling, and they didn't have a plan to fund the government, so we shut down. Our foreign policy, Iraq remains politically unstable after American troops leave. ISIS begins to form during this time, or the Islamic State. It goes by a bunch of names, but IS or ISIS, or there's some other ones too. U.S., there's a civil war brewing in Syria during Obama's second term, and we are hesitant to get involved in that because of public policy perception about how it would be viewed going back into the Middle East after just getting out. And in November 2013, he does hit a breakthrough with Iran as they accept Western leaders' proposals to halt some of their nuclear development program. They claim it's for energy. We think it's for weapons. And then we would lift some of the sanctions from that as well. And then finally, one of the last moments in our curriculum, on Patriots Day, April 15th, 2013, they hold the Boston Marathon. And at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, 2 pressure cooker bombs were detonated, killing 3 and injuring 264 people. 2 brothers are traced to it through security footage, and they have a shootout with police in Boston. And the other was captured in the following days after being injured in the shootout. And he is now on death row, I believe, and soon to be put to death. So these were not ISIS, these were not Al-Qaeda, these were rogue 2 brothers who were raised in America. They were Islamic extremists, upset. Sorry about that. They were upset about the American policies in the Middle East, and they detonate the bombs. They were actually from Chechnya, I believe, not Czechoslovakia. That was a big mistake at the time, but Chechnya. And so that was about the important stuff that happened in Obama's second term. Donald Trump is elected in 2016 and took office in 2017. So thanks for joining us on our journey through American history, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.